Hey folks, this is Josh, Stoney Ridge Farmer. Welcome back to the farm. Today we're going to be working out here in the driveway. It's a nice cool fall day and we've got to harvest our meat birds for the fall here. So we have some Cornish cross meat birds, maybe one or two of those, and then we have some Rainbow Ranger broilers. All these birds came from Meyer Hatchery. This is a part of a video series in conjunction with Meyer Hatchery and also Coops & More. So we got some of our products from Coops & More, some of the products we use from Meyer Hatchery. We have a heavy-duty plucker over here. We have a scalder. We have what we call hugging cones for hugging the chickens, and we have a rack to store those on. There's also a big stainless steel table over here. We'll show you how all this comes together today. We'll teach you how to slaughter chickens in your own backyard. It's going to be a good time, so come along on the farm. We'll walk you through all this. This is the second video I've done using this equipment, but this is a little bit different setup from before. It's cold out here. My pops is coming to help me, and we're going to have some fun here on the farm. All right? So the first thing we've got to do is hook our propane tank up to our scalder, and basically this thing is filled with water up to about right here. And when you put the chickens down, you've got to leave a little bit of room for when you put your chickens down in there so it doesn't spew water out all over your open flame here. So this is from Coops & More. This is a scalder that runs off of propane, and it's basically like a giant turkey cooker. You could probably use a giant turkey cooker too, but this thing's really handy. So we'll get rocking and rolling with this. This starts up on its own. We'll get some water. There it goes, it fired right up. We'll get some water in here and get the temperature up on the water. It'll go from killing cones to scalding pot to plucker and over to table for gutting and cutting the feet off and everything like that. And we'll separate some of the entrails like the liver and the gizzard. We'll have all that stuff separated out into different pots, and then we'll vacuum seal with a whole chicken vacuum seal bag, and we'll show you how all that stuff works. This is a pretty cool process, and I think to see it more than once is still educational, and we learn every time we do this. So hopefully you guys will learn a little bit today. All right, so I'm just putting water inside the scalding pot right now. What you need to know is you need a few things down here at the area you're processing. You need electricity with a GFI outlet, so in case it gets wet, it trips the breaker, and that way you don't die. You also need the scalder and the plucker right here, so you need water constantly. While you're dipping your birds in, you need to be checking their feet. Once the skin starts coming off the feet, then you know you're good to go to put them over in the plucker. Then the plucker requires running water, just like so. You need to be spraying water in that plucker the whole time that you're watching your birds get plucked. It really only takes about 20 seconds to do 2 birds, but you've got to keep the feathers rinsed clear. That way it doesn't clog up, and it doesn't bind up, it doesn't slow down, and it doesn't trip your circuit breaker. Now, inside the scalding pot, it comes with this little grate that sits down the bottom and this pan. So this scalding pot is not only good for doing chickens or turkeys, you could also cook your Thanksgiving turkey in here if you wanted to. You could use it for multiple purposes. So just FYI, we're gonna pull this out this time because I found it was a little bit handier to not have that handle. In other words, we dipped our chickens in, and when I went to pull them out, it would grab that handle, and it just kind of got in the way. So we're gonna set this stuff to the side for today's purposes. All right, here's a little scalding pot 101. So it's easier to put a little water in there, and you're gonna have to put water in this constantly. As you're dipping the chickens in, it's pulling water out of there, so you're gonna have to keep adding water. You're gonna have to keep a flame underneath this, but don't fill it up so full, because if it gets too hot before you start your first bird, you can always add a little bit of cold water and cool it back down. Otherwise, you can't add water. You got to pour some out. It makes it dangerous. So what you need to do is leave plenty of space in there in case it gets too hot before you get started, so you can add a little bit of cold water. You're gonna have to fool with the water temperature pretty much the whole time. This is gonna be, like I said, 30 to 35 chickens, and it's probably gonna take us in the neighborhood of 2 hours. 2 guys, and my wife is gonna help out too, so we're gonna have some fun. She's gonna be the chicken catcher today. So the scalding operation and processing operations up here, we're gonna need to move the coop up the hill. In other words, this is a mobile coop that moves throughout the yard or pasture, and basically I should have been slowly working that guy up the hill here. It's okay. They're hungry and they'll follow me because they want food. I haven't fed these birds for about 12 hours now, so hopefully their craw will be empty and devoid of food. If you give them 12 to 18 hours without food before you slaughter them, you won't have poop all over everywhere, so you'll reduce your manure load drastically. We'll turn the coop over this way, so the birds kind of are trained to follow me. Now, the reason these birds are going to follow me is because they're so used to me feeding them. So I would drag the coop over and feed them so they know the routine is coop moves, we get food, so they'll follow me anywhere I go. So in case you guys are new to the channel, this is our mobile chicken coop. It's made of PVC. There'll be a link up here somewhere to the video where we made this thing, and you'll get a little bit of instruction and see how it's constructed. It's pretty cool, very handy, and so far so good. We've used it all year. It's fairly lightweight, so my wife can move it. I like it. So before we get started, we take everything and we clean it with soapy water. Everything that's on the clean side. This is the clean side, and that's the dirty side. So the chickens are here, the killing cones are here. They'll go from there to the scalder, to the plucker, and to the man that's going to do the gutting. Then they'll go in this big barrel right over here that's full of cold water and big chunks of ice. So they'll be pre-cooled before we put them in the freezer, because if you put this amount of birds in the freezer, it's going to cause you some grief. It's going to make everything in your freezer thaw out. We put 40 birds in our freezer, 40-ish birds in our freezer last time, and it took them 4 days to freeze. So just something to think about. You need to pre-cool them before you put them in the freezer if you're doing this amount of birds right here. Cool? Now, hindsight, I probably should have put the killing cones here closer to the coop and then put this on the other side. We may make that adjustment, we may not. It might take this much longer to do that, but ergonomics really make a big difference when you're doing a job like this. Food for thought. Last time we made this video, folks wanted to know about dispatching a chicken. How do you kill the chicken? I am not going to show you the kill, because I find that there are a lot of folks on YouTube that just watch videos to see stuff die, and that's not me and that's not what I'm about. So I am going to tell you exactly what we do. We pull the chicken down into the killing cone, or the hugging cone, and basically we put the breast out this direction. There's a chicken in here right now. You slide the chicken down, feet up, breast this direction towards the curve. You slide him down in there, you reach down below, you get him by the head, and there's a little joint just between the neck and the head, and you just go whoosh, really quickly, and the head comes right off. They stay in the killing cone, and they just kind of move around a little bit. The purpose of the killing cone here is to keep the chicken from flipping and flopping all over everywhere, because they will have some electrical activity in their bodies still once you kill them. In other words, they will spasm after you kill them. Now, back in the old days when you killed chickens on grandma's farm, they just chopped them off on a chopping block. It's quick, it's simple, it's not cruel, it's not mean, it's the purpose of the chicken's life. Now, instead of chopping his head off and watching him run and bruise and flop all over the ground, the killing cone prevents that. In other words, the chicken just goes boop, boop, boop like this, and that's it. And then you put them in the scalding pot. So we'll show you, we're going to scald some birds here. In just a minute, we're going to show you the difference between the size of the Cornish cross bird versus the size of the Rainbow Ranger broiler. The Cornish cross bird is a lot bigger, a lot more robust bird. It takes a little more food and a little less time for the Cornish cross to grow. If I had a preference for cute birds that run around the yard and for smart birds that can forage and run in a large area, I would definitely take the Rainbow Ranger broilers. For a meat bird, a utility bird that you're just moving and feeding your family with, then I would go with the Cornish cross. So it depends on if you want your birds to forage in a large area, then get the Rainbow Ranger broilers from Meyer Hatchery. If you want a bird that's going to stay in a nice confined space and be happy and move around on the yard, then the Cornish cross bird is the bird you want. So let's get busy. Now I'm gonna let you know, scalding a chicken that's been running around out in the yard with poop and dirt and mud, it's not pretty. The scalding water is not pretty. When they come out of the plucker, they are clean and pretty and nice, and you rinse them as you pluck them. So let's show you the process of scalding, and we'll show you the scalding water. This is our scalding water. This foam is what has come up after we've done about 9 or 10 chickens. Here's our thermometer. We have a little mark right here for 150 degrees. And basically, we'll slide that marker right there on the 150, slide him in, and check our temperature. If we're above 155, we don't put birds in here because it can cook the skin. So what we'll do is add more cold water. It looks like we're at about 152. Right there, you can see it. It's dropping very fast. This is a very sensitive thermometer. It comes with the kit. So I'm getting ready to scald a bird. I'm gonna reach down here and I'm gonna turn on my plucker. And the plucker starts to spin down in the bottom. We'll get a bird. All right, down in the scalding water, we just take a fireplace poker and just push the birds down in the water and make sure they stay fully submerged. That's it. For about 35, 45 seconds, then the birds are ready to come out. Just keep them underwater. The fireplace poker really works good. You got a large ladle or spoon, that would work just fine too. Now you know your chicken is ready to come out when you pick the foot and the skin comes off the foot. Drop him right over in here. Good to go. We'll run some water in there. And those little fingers will pluck the chicken. You gotta keep water running through this all the time because right down there, it's spitting out feathers. If you don't keep water running through, the feathers don't come out. Very simple. The only thing spinning is the bottom right here, and it looks like it's beating them to death, but it really does a great job. Rinse your birds as you're going. That helps release the feathers. And rinse your machine. Good, very easy. We'll reach down here, we'll turn our machine off. Okay, I have a little tripod right here to hold my water. Basically, here's what the bird comes out looking like, just like you'd buy in the store. Nice big breast. We'll take them over here to the gutting station and we'll gut them. That is what you want. So simple, so easy. Now there may be a few tail feathers in here and you can see the skin started to tear a little bit, so we had the water a little bit too warm. This is Mrs. Stoney Ridge's first time on a chicken slaughter day, participating. She had to work last time, right?
Yep.
What do you think? She's worried about getting blood on her.
No.
That's what a camouflage jacket's for. So what do you think, Mrs. Stoney Ridge?
It's an interesting process.
Good.
It's actually easier than I thought it would be.
It's very easy. When you have all this equipment, you know, this equipment is I'm tossing birds in the plucker. This equipment is a one-time purchase and one and done. I mean, this is stuff that's gonna last you a lifetime. There'll be a link down to Coops and more. The equipment is, I would say, moderately expensive, but if you consider that you go to the grocery store and buy 2 bags of groceries and it costs you $250, I think the equipment is well worth the investment. Don't you?
Yeah, I agree.
She was concerned when we first bought this stuff. So the next step in this process is we're gonna take the chickens and we'll put them in a shrinking type bag. In other words, we'll pour out all this yucky water that's inside the scalding pot, and we will dip the chickens down in a shrinkable bag. Once you dip them down in there, the bag will shrink up tight around the chicken. You can zip tie it shut, and then you can put them in the freezer, and they're good to go for a year, 2 years, however long. You need to keep an eye on them if you have a self-defrosting freezer. My recommendation is, if you're trying to keep meat for a long time, that you just don't get a self-defrosting freezer. You get one that you have to defrost, because that thing will get warm and cool and warm and cool, and that's what causes your freezer burn. Now let's talk about how we cook the chicken. So we'll take the chicken out of the freezer, we'll thaw it out. I'll cut it into quarters sometimes. Sometimes I'll take those big old fat breasts and cut them into little nuggets and make myself little chicken nuggets. Most of the time I'll cut them into quarters. We'll either batter and fry them, or we'll bake them. And I like to use almond flour, it's really good, or that House Autry chicken batter, I really like to use that. We leave the back and the neck and all the little spare parts that we don't use, like the tips of the wings, and we boil the tips of the wings and the back and the neck. We pick the meat off and we make an awesome broth. We also save the chicken feet for making chicken stock. Cool stuff. All right guys, so me and my dad are here working. We're working through these chickens. I'll show you the difference in a regular Cornish cross bird, which has the large, thick, full breast, versus a Rainbow Ranger broiler. A lot smaller bird. That's Cornish cross, that's Rainbow Ranger broiler. I prefer the Cornish cross over the Rainbow Ranger broiler. I see it's a bigger chicken. It eats more food, but when you're out here working and you're doing this, the setup and cleanup is really the time consuming part. So after we get done, I've got to clean all this equipment and put it up, make sure it's dry, get it ready to rock and roll. So what we need to do is think about utilization of time versus your favorite type of bird. Now again, if you want a Cornish cross bird, they're easy to be in a confined space. If you want birds that are going to roam and free range, then I would say go with the Rainbow Ranger broiler. I'm going to get you down here, get you a close-up, show you what I do to prepare the bird to go in the freezer. I prefer to do 2 chickens at one time. You just take the chicken foot here, bend over, cut just like that. Boop, off comes a foot. Get you a nice knife. Make sure you have a nice sharp knife. Just pops right off, foot comes right off. We'll do both birds here. So there's bird number 1, bird number 2, cut, slice up, cut, just like this. Now the difference in a bird like this and a bird you get from the store is rigor mortis sets up pretty quick. So these birds start getting fairly stiff fairly quickly. We're gonna do the Cornish cross bird first. So there is a craw right here. We call it the craw. There's a little organ right there. You can see it bulging out, and it contains food. Whatever that bird's eaten in the last few hours is in that craw, okay? You can pull right here. The craw and the esophagus just come right out. Give them a nice tug. I like to cut. And I don't want to, you see that grass? So that's what I didn't want to expose the bird to. We'll put that in the yuck bucket over here. Got a bucket of intestines and parts that we don't use. Then we'll go in and we'll lightly cut right here just to break the skin, and I'll take my finger, push up in there, just like so, tear to open, reach in with 3 fingers and pull out our intestines, our heart, our liver, our gizzard, and our lungs. Here's the heart. We'll put it in a special pan over here. We put the feet in a special pan because we're going to take the feet and we're going to use them for stock. This is the liver. Cut the liver out, put it in a special pan. On the liver, you have to be very careful. There's a thing called the gallbladder. You want to be careful not to get that gallbladder. Next thing that's pretty cool, you just take and slice a little V right here toward what I call the tutor, or what people call the Pope's nose, and that is the rectal organ of the chicken. This chicken is ready to go. All the organs are out. There's a few feathers on the end here, just kind of pluck those off, and we're putting them over here in a barrel of ice. And that's a barrel of nice cold ice water. Now, here we are with our gizzards. Very, very simply. We got some more liver right here, so we'll cut that liver out, put that in the liver bin. This is our gizzard. You can just cut the gizzard off. You got to be careful not to get that gallbladder. Here is the gallbladder. It's attached to the liver. If you squeeze that and bust it, you got green, blue, yucky, nasty stuff. This all goes in the yuck bucket. The gizzard goes in this pan. As you do this, you'll get better and better and better, and you'll get your flow down. By the time you get your flow down, you'll be all done, and you'll be ready for doing it next year, and you'll have to almost relearn it again. So if you want to, refer back to this video, and we have another video on killing chickens. It's right up here. It gives you a whole lot of detail also. Hopefully at some point here on the farm channel, we'll have a day where we'll have folks out here, and we'll show them how to do this. We'll do a class, get some hands-on. That'd be kind of fun. All right, working on a craw. I'll show you this last bird just for final reference here. So I've got my craw, my esophagus, get a little cut right here, get him out of there. There we go. Okay, I've already cut right here. I'm gonna reach in, get all the organs out. Very simple. This is a Cornish cross bird. It's a little bit bigger. There we go. Pulling all the organs out. Here is our liver, and you'll see the liver on this one is a little bit different color. All the livers are a little bit different color anyway. Okay, and reach here, cut the rectal organs out, very, very simply, and out comes the gizzard. Very cool. Nice. Now the gizzard will have to be cut open, and there is grit, all sorts of grit down in there, and a little layer of skin. I'm told if you scald the gizzard very lightly, you can peel that skin off very easy too. So guys, we're just going to hammer this out. We're getting busy here. We only have a couple more chickens to go. We did about 30 to 35 chickens, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 hours. If not for this equipment, it would have taken a lot longer. Very nice to have that stuff. Once again, quick shout out to Coops and More, guys. Check them out. There'll be a link down the video description to everything we used, including these nitrile gloves. I really like these work gloves, nitrile work gloves. I use them in the shop. I use them all the time. So check that stuff out. We're going to get busy. Just a second, we'll show you how we shrink them into the shrink bags. Cool. We drop him head first down in the bag. Situate his neck and head down into a corner of this bag is what we found works pretty good, depending on how big the bird is. Squeeze out all the air that I can, and then we'll get you a shot down here. We'll dip down into our warm water, hold him down with a spoon, just like this. Nice clean warm water. Hold them down for a few seconds. The bag will get soft and pliable. This is an awesome way to do this. You don't have to shrink wrap them or anything. So you can see the bag is kind of drawn up on the bird. It's still drawing up as we go. I'll pull it tight and then I'll give it a twist. Just like so. Then we'll put the zip tie on. Snug as a bug in a rug. There is your bird. Cool. Guys, my dad was saying that the fat on the Cornish cross was a little bit whiter than the fat on these Rainbow Ranger broilers. So if the fat matters to you, I hear a brown fat's a little bit better for you than a whiter fat. So I don't know. Guys, thanks a lot for coming and joining us here on the Stoney Ridge Farm today. I hope you learned a little bit. Every time we do this, we learn a little bit more and we learn a little bit more. So come on back and see us here on the farm. Be sure and pound that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you like this kind of stuff, click that little bell icon down there. It'll notify you when I post a new video. Share this stuff on social media. That really, really helps out the channel. I can teach you a lot of fun stuff. So thanks a lot. We'll see you next time on the Stoney Ridge Farm. All right? Woo! Dad didn't do the woo. Lean in here. Ow!